So with the rise of foldables, the new Galaxy S23 Ultra might not be the most exciting phone in Samsung's lineup anymore, especially this year. I mean, it essentially looks identical to last year's model, and on paper, the list of noteworthy changes is pretty small, right? Hi everyone, Tai here. You might even call this phone boring, and that's probably fair based on first impressions, but here's the thing. Maybe you don't need your phone to be exciting. Maybe you just want the most refined, reliable, feature-rich package that Samsung has to offer. Well, that's exactly what you get with the S23 Ultra. So this is one of those phones that looks a lot better in person. I remember when they first introduced the floating camera design last year. I wasn't the biggest fan, but you know what? It's grown on me. Especially in this cream colorway with the silver accents around the cameras and the frame of the phone. It just has a minimal elegance to it. They did make a subtle change to the curvature of the glass, leading to a wider frame, bigger buttons, and a screen with a slightly larger flat surface area. The idea here is to make it a little less annoying to write near the edges of the phone with the built-in S Pen. The writing experience is pretty good for what it is. It's great for on-the-fly note-taking, quickly jotting down ideas, sketches, filling out PDFs, and things like that. For longer writing sessions, the tiny pen and tight writing space just isn't something I can deal with for that long. If you take absolutely zero notes, the pen will probably not see much use other than maybe as a remote shutter for the camera. You've still got the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner embedded into the screen. Dry skin still causes some issues here and there for me, but for the most part, it's nice and reliable. The power button embedded scanners on Samsung's foldables are still my favorite though, and I kind of wish it was on here instead. The display is unchanged from last year, which is fine since it's already an awesome screen. I mean, what more can they do, right? Do we really want 4K screens on our phones? With a variable refresh rate of 1 to 120Hz at 1750 nits, the screen is super smooth and plenty bright. There is a new enhanced comfort mode toggle that automatically tones down contrast and vibrancy to make it a little easier for those with sensitive eyes. This is likely just software based, so I do expect it to come to older models too. One of the nice little surprises was the improvement to the stereo speakers. I put it up against the iPhone 14 Pro and the Pixel 7 Pro just to see how it compares. The most important upgrade and likely a big part of why the phone has felt so refined is thanks to the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy processor, which is supposedly up to 40% more powerful than the previous generation. Throwing it into benchmarks confirms that, yeah, it's a sizable jump over the S22 Ultra. For day-to-day tasks, anything from the past few years will still be more than capable. The reality is, phones have gone so fast and powerful that these numbers are more for bragging rights. I ran a couple of gaming sessions in Genshin Impact, which is one of the more challenging mobile games to run these days. On the highest graphic settings, it typically hovers anywhere between 54 to 60 frames per second, with 60 being the max. Temperatures also hit a high of 41 degrees Celsius after about 30 minutes, so not too bad at all. The new processor also delivers better battery life too. This is probably the best battery I've experienced from a Samsung phone. I'm ending days with like 40 to 45% battery left over with roughly 4 hours of screen on time. If you're like me and not heavily on your phone, you can probably expect 2 days out of it. You can also turn on light performance mode. I literally can't tell the difference in terms of performance, but the extra battery you gain is noticeable. Standby battery drain is also as good as I've seen from a Galaxy phone. It loses like 1 to 2% overnight. An hour of HDR video streaming on Wi-Fi drains about 8%, an hour of 4K video recording drains 16%, an hour of navigating in Google Maps drains 12%, and an hour of Genshin Impact hit the battery for 24%. Although Samsung didn't change the charging speeds, I noticed that it definitely charges slightly faster. They must have changed the algorithm or something. I'm talking 75% in 30 minutes with a full charge taking around 55 minutes. And you've of course still got the option for wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Samsung's software is so jam-packed with features that I think they've gone to the point where they can focus a little more on refinements, and that's what they've done. This is the first phone to ship with One UI 5.1. One UI 5 was a fairly tame update, and 5.1 doesn't change all too much either, but there are a few new tricks. For example, you can choose between a natural or warm color tone for your selfies now. They introduced an all-new battery widget and also tweaked the weather widget, adding new illustration styles. But the coolest thing they added is Bixby Text Call. If you've used Screen Call on Pixel phones, this is basically Samsung's version of it. When you receive a call, you can have Samsung's voice assistant automatically answer.
I'm using Bixby Text Call to convert your voice into text and respond to you.
It'll then transcribe exactly what the caller is saying in a text chat, and you can tap or type replies that are read aloud to the caller. This is great for situations where you can't pick up or for messing with spam callers. It was one of my favorite Pixel exclusive features, so I'm glad to see Samsung offer their own version. One of the biggest knocks on Samsung software is that you've got two app stores, two sets of preloaded apps from both Google plus Samsung, and a load of settings plus options that can feel overwhelming if you're not used to it. Look, I totally get it. If you prefer a cleaner, more minimal software experience, One UI might be a little too much. Different strokes for different folks, right?
It's the end of the weekend, but I still wanna turn up. Yeah, I still wanna.
The S23 Ultra can now shoot up to 8K 30 frames per second, up from 24 frames per second. Here's a sample of me and my daughter. This is with only natural light coming through the window in front of us. It looks pretty good, right? I still think it's slightly overkill for a phone, but who knows, maybe in a few years, 8K might be the new 4K. Taking a look at some side-by-side footage against the iPhone and Pixel, the iPhone is probably still my favorite, but it's not as big a gap as it used to be. You can tell Samsung's tweaked their processing. Colors and contrast are both toned down, which gives it a more neutral look, but it can look flat at times. When it comes to photography, the S22 Ultra was considered by many to have one of the most versatile camera systems on a phone, and the S23 Ultra offers the same with a few improvements. With a total of 4 lenses, you've got a lot of flexibility when it comes to framing your photos. The 3x optical zoom is definitely one of my favorite lenses, especially with a 6-month-old. 10x optical zoom isn't something most people think they need, but it's another tool at your disposal, and I ended up using it a lot more than I thought I would. I especially love being able to get close-ups of people's faces to really capture their expressions. It can go all the way up to 100x zoom, but anything after 10x will be digital zoom. For example, here's me trying to capture the CN Tower to show you what the experience is like for more extreme zoom levels. 30x shots are definitely usable, but 100x is more of a party trick. Another option for getting nice and close is with the macro mode, which automatically kicks in when you get close enough. For example, I put the camera literally inches away from this watch and check out how detailed the photos are. The 200 megapixel main lens is one of the other notable upgrades this year, and by default, it shoots 12 megapixel images. I've shown a lot of samples from the main lens already, and yeah, it takes really nice photos. What you can also do is capture 50 megapixel and 200 megapixel images as well. You probably can't tell by just looking at these samples, but zooming in 400% and you can clearly see that the 200 megapixel one is much sharper. The front-facing camera still takes really flattering selfies, even though they've toned down the processing over the years. It kind of amazes me how Apple, Google, and Samsung can have such different looking selfies in the exact same environment. Anyways, I took a bunch more comparison shots, so I'll just toss those up on the screens for you to check out. It's not like one phone is dominating the other or decisively better. In some scenarios, I prefer one, but in others, I prefer the other. I will say, Samsung does have the best edge detection if you're into portrait mode. If you're in the market for a premium Galaxy phone and you're not buying into the whole foldable feature that Samsung is trying to push, then this is the phone for you. Not to mention, the cameras on here are just levels above what's currently on the Fold and Flip. The thing is, this isn't some groundbreaking phone. It's not gonna wow you like that. It's just a really solid device that builds on last year's model. The speakers are better, the battery lasts longer, it gets a nice bump in performance, and the camera system still rocks. It's also the only phone that Samsung currently offers with a built-in stylus, unless they manage to make room for one in the Fold 5 later this year. With that being said, there really isn't enough to justify an upgrade if you're using a phone from the past year or two. But if you're coming from an older Note, like a Note 9 or Note 10 Plus, then this will feel like an amazing upgrade. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Until the next one, I'm out of here. Bye!